I'm going to take us live as well. That normally takes a few minutes because Facebook is shit.
Can brush me hair. Ben, do you want some?
What's that? Sorry, Juliette.
Want some hair?
I could do some, couldn't I?
You could snip the end bits
if I had
off,
yours, like if I had hair like yours, I would. Yeah.
You could snip the ends off and put them at the sides of the baseball cap to make it look
exactly. Yeah, no one would have to know what's under the cap.
No. I tell you what I do have. So the next time I see you, I will bring it. Wigs.
Oh man, wicked! I could put that on. I'll look like I don't know. I'll look like Reg Presley.
When this is finished, I'll actually put it on, and you can just go.
I wonder what
it's quite funny. It's really weird because I don't really suit dark hair at all because I'm that pale. I look really weird. I don't know what. I've just got a selection of puppets, wigs, random, axes, things.
Axes. Oh my god.
I know when you need one.
You never know. Yeah. Well.
I live in Blackpool. You're going to be prepared for anything. People coming up and just going, nah, and you're like, okay.
I always said to Carol, Carol, I invited you. I know you couldn't make it, but if we ever get a chance again, come to a conference. You'll love it. Oh, I know you've been to Watford, and go to Probe though, Carol.
Probe, yeah.
That's really good. Or not Probe. That's finished now, but Lapis.
I was going to ask you guys actually, because I really want to start doing UFO conferences again. So I was going to ask you for a list of the good ones that are still going on,
Oh man.
But yeah, I wanted to go to David Icke's talk with you, Ben, but it was too expensive.
Unfortunately, considering what you get, it's not bad, good value, but obviously you have to save up for it, and there's often travel involved, things like that. If you've got someone in the local area you can stay with, that's good, like I did in Newcastle. But I know right now I'm just thinking, are we ever going to get in that situation again?
So we are live. Yes, let me check that. Yes, we are live on Facebook. Welcome to the Cosmic Ascension Waves of Light with myself, Soma ARah, and guests. Today's date is the 2nd of November. Please come and like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Carol Noonan. Join the Cosmic Ascension Waves of Light group on Facebook and the Great Awakening of Humanity 2020 group on Facebook. I am a channel for the Pleiadians. I'm also a UFO contactee, abductee, and experiencer. If you'd like a reading with me or a direct voice channeling from the Pleiadians, please email me at thepleiadianchild@hotmail.com. Today's guests are Emlyn Jones, Andy Chaplin, Tony Topping, Juliette Gregson. And yeah, without any further ado, guys, I would just like to welcome you all. Let's go straight into it. And we're also live on Facebook. So maybe we could just go round, and if you'd like to introduce yourselves. Juliette, would you like to go first?
Yes, of course I'd love to go first. Yes. Hello, everybody. My name's Juliette Gregson. I live in Blackpool, and some of the things I do heritage photography, I do conference photography, I do podcasts, I write articles about heritage, but also about the more spooky elements. Always willing to learn, always willing to discuss. You never know what's going to happen. So things like this, let's just listen, learn, and discuss. Thank you.
Thanks, Julia. So who would like to go next? We'll just go around the table with the
creeping death.
Well, I'm Tony Topping, and I need no introduction, so let's move on.
He's also very modest.
I'm a fantasy. I make it all up as I go along, and all that. No, actually, seriously, I'm an author, broadcaster, into film and TV work now, publishing my latest book, which is not a read for the faint-hearted, and been to the gates of hell and back with it all. I'm lucky to be sat here after what I have lived through. And I always find I'm a bit of a champion of mental health problems, whereby you don't let them destroy you, they shape you. And so my experiences with UFOs that spanned over 40 years have actually shaped me rather than broke me. And it's certainly made a man out of me. Oh my God, it has. And the UFO phenomena is very real. And there's an international cover-up like you wouldn't believe on the matter. So there you go.
It sounds like you have been hugely targeted, Tony. Is that right?
Hugely, yes, indeed. Yes, I have been targeted. Yes, I certainly have. And what we've got in the in what I'm writing is an element of it called the Chronicles. In the title of my book, it's got the word Chronicles in it. And that's a day-to-day diary of what I lived through before I was looking after my mother when she had dementia. And I was being hit in all directions because they don't want this in the public domain. And also, I've had to publish it as fiction to protect the innocent. So, you know.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
There's a reason for it, actually, because I have been harassed and I've received online abuse as well. So one has to maneuver oneself so that the book is published as fiction, but it is far from fictitious what happened to me. But it's done in a certain way so that I'm covered. Because I think if we publish it as non-fiction, people will be foaming at the mouth over what I've written, you see. So, but I want to tell the world what happened to me. So there you go.
Okay, thanks, Tony.
All right.
And Andrew, do you want to go next, darling?
Yep, my name's Andy, and I'm a co-host with Neil Geddes-Ward on the Paranormal Peep Show. And I've been into all things woo-woo, paranormal, ghosty for all my life, basically. Yeah, that's about it.
And you do readings as well, don't you?
I do, yeah. I've been doing readings for probably about 20 years now. I organise psychic nights as well, clairvoyant demonstrations, all that kind of thing, all the woo-woo stuff.
And where are you based?
I'm in Hertfordshire.
Okay.
And I'll plug my little group actually on my website, which is Tuned in Events, tuned with a D in events and everything that we do, which is nothing at the moment because of lockdown. Everything we will do in the future will be listed up on there. We did. Do you know what? Some people kind of like used to say to me, "You should have predicted the lockdowns. You know, you should have predicted coronavirus." Well, I don't think anyone.
I don't think anyone could have predicted.
But it came to the 1st of October, and I thought, should I do some Halloween events? Because Halloween is my Christmas. Absolutely love Halloween. So I thought this could go two ways. We could either go into lockdown and there'll be kind of like no events anywhere, or I could just about get away with it. And the past 2 weeks has been manic with events, doing Halloween themed events, dressing as clowns and all kinds of things. And just as we're finishing, we're going into lockdown. So my gut feeling was right on that one, luckily.
Yeah, intuition is great, and instinct, and
So something told me to just go for it. Just one last push before a lockdown comes. Just go for it. So yeah.
And thanks, Andy. So Ben, would you like to go next?
Sure. My name is Ben Emlyn Jones, and I am the author of the blog Hapanmo, Hospital Porters Against the New World Order and all its associated works. I'm a filmmaker. Like yourself, Carol, I'm a radio show host, and I tackle the subjects of UFOs, the paranormal, and government cover-ups of various kinds. I consider these subjects, which are regarded as fringe and almost non-existent by the rest of the world, more or less, as the most important issues affecting the world today. We have to gain an understanding of them. It's absolutely a necessity for humanity to move forward and survive.
And you have books, Ben, sorry, don't you?
Yes, I do. I have a book called Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure. This is a fictional work. It's just a story, a novel, as I explained, but it is about, basically, it's about UFOs primarily, but all other associated subjects that I cover. And it says basically what would happen if we actually got the truth about these subjects instead of the continuous lies about them, which Tony has described very well. There is a cover-up. Absolutely, there is information is being suppressed, crucial information that could change the world. What would happen if we had that information? That led to this book and its two sequels, Roswell Revealed and Roswell Redeemed.
Well, I think that's a great place for us to start tonight, because when COVID kicked off, I mean, I've been a channel for the Pleiadians since 2009, 2010, and actually I then did shamanic courses and began to have memories of having connected to them as a child and in past life. So my connection with them is really strong. And I hadn't realized that when I started channeling. But and I didn't foresee COVID at all. I didn't know that was coming. I did have dreams last year. And I was telling my partner, John, at the time, that we weren't allowed out. And he just said, oh, don't be so silly. And I thought, yeah, that's right. You know, that is silly. But in hindsight, I did have a couple of dreams of it where we weren't allowed out. And when COVID kicked off, I hadn't channeled the Pleiadians for a while, and I went into the garden and I reconnected to them and channeled, and they gave me whole downloads of information. And one of the things was that there will be mass sightings of UFOs around the world that will not be shown on the media. And then that actually started to happen. So I know, well, I wasn't surprised, but so there's been mass sightings of UFOs around the world since February that haven't been shown on the news. I mean, I've seen a huge increase of images and films and recordings and everything. So, I mean, I know I know that we've been lied to on a mass scale about everything. And all systems need to come down. All systems need to dissolve. And our true history is so unbelievable that most people don't believe it. You know,
you've also got a lot of subterfuge going on. So, for instance, you've got people kind of deliberately faking UFO videos and putting them out there to try and get people to believe it. And then when it comes out that it's eventually a hoax, you know, that kind of discredits the genuine UFO videos, and everyone goes, oh, ha ha ha, you know, CGI and all that lot. So that's a real problem. How do you think we can get around the problem? And this is like a question to everyone. How do you think we can get around the problem of the advanced nature of CGI that can make things look very, very realistic? And how can we know what is a real UFO video and what's not?
You can't.
It's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult because somebody could show you the most credible, unbelievable footage, but at the end of the day, it could be CGI.
I think I've had this conversation with Ben and probably one or two others. It's like you say, you've got so many leaps in technology. You've got the two types of magic. You've got like magic for entertainment or real magic. Mm. It's one of those, you could, again, another separate discussion that could last for an hour or two, or, you know, a couple of drinks when we're all allowed in a pub again. Mm. It's, let's say we were in a room, we could see something. We know it's real. We filmed it. Yeah. As soon as we put it on YouTube or wherever, oh, you're fake.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
exactly. I'm sure there's like a little bot or a little troll somewhere that's their job is just to put fake on everything. Every video, whatever it is fake.
But you could say that not just about ufology. You could say that about an awful lot of some of the things that you discuss on all of your programs. That, you know, the people that do this and the people that write about it. You see, there's part of me that thinks I'm on the fringe. I'm a watcher. Am I an alien? I don't know, probably. But you've got to think about it. It's making people think that's what you do. That's what Tony does. That's what Carol does. That's what Ben does. That's what we all do. Mm.
We actually know absolutely positively that what Juliette has just described and what Andy has just described actually happens. There is what's known collectively as COINTELPRO, which is actually various governments use techniques by actually setting up fake organizations, fake individuals, fake evidence that appears to be counter-propositional to the government's rulership, its domination, but is in fact simply an attenuated and very confused form of opposition, which is designed to derail real opposition. As far as visual evidence when it comes to things such as UFOs and paranormal, cryptozoology, etc., it's just doesn't carry as much weight as it used to. As we've been explaining, it's just too easy to create realistic, believable fakes. Animation is now so good that even an expert can't actually pick apart a really well composed artificial image. This is it's not insurmountable. It's something that can be overcome. For example, if you have a mass witness sighting such as the Phoenix Lights, I mean, you could say that the videos were faked. I think the news stories actually used some of the less impressive images, and the other imagery has disappeared. However, we know from the huge number of witnesses that it had to be a real event. Whatever was causing it, you can't pretend it didn't happen. It was just fake. It wasn't. So I think eyewitness testimony with imagery is what I'm looking for now. And it's sad, you know, because there may well be real footage still being published, but because of this cry wolf situation we're in, the real images unfortunately just get laughed at along with the fake ones. So it's a very confusing situation. I just hope it can be remedied somehow.
And have you guys had any experiences? I know Tony has, but have you seen UFOs? Are you abductees? Are you contactees? Are you experiencers? I don't know who wants to start and maybe share their experiences.
Well, I'd just like to continue on just to the previous point about what Ben's just been saying, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Very important to note that during the 1950s and the 60s, there were people out there who were contactees, from Adamski to Billy Meyer to a few others who claim contactees from the Venetians. But if you are a contactee in real life, and if you collide with the UFO situation, there's two things to add, in that the classified projects that go on involving UFOs, involving government, are in collision at this moment in time. The white hat, the black hat. You've got this collision going on, and in the skies above us, you've got like this alien Cold War, where these two kind of alien classified projects that go on behind the scenes clash. So the simplest equation of all is this: is the fact is that you've got SETI looking at with the telescopes, you've got the search for extraterrestrial life, but the biggest secret of all is that they're in the backyard. The biggest secret of all is that these ETs are using bases in, let us say, regions of Russia, regions of China. If you're a member of the public who actually speaks to them, you will get recoil like no other at you, including those that are responsible for the UFO cover-up from World War II. And some contactees have to be very careful. And then secondly to that, you'll get abused, but you'll also get secondary abused from the unacknowledged special access projects. And the problem is that when you get to a certain level, you will be neurally monitored as a contactee. If you're experiencing contact with UFOs, the military will watch you. And it's a very difficult situation to be in. And you've got the big name researchers out there, and they kind of like, they don't want to know. And yet the agenda is going on. There is interaction going on. Governments are aware of it, and there's a high level cover up. But what is disgusting is the corruption behind it and the level of abuse that you will get coming at you. And you have to stand your ground with it, because it's very important. We are being lied to.
Yeah. And Tony, I just want to say thank you for sharing that. And I know absolutely what you're talking about, because I have been a target for a number of years, and it's actually got worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not going to go into my stuff and my story and my targeting and what that involves, sometimes on a daily basis. But yeah, I get what you're saying. You know, yeah, targeting is can be horrendous. Yeah. It can be horrendous, and it can be very draining emotionally, or mentally. It can be physically. It can be draining as well.
You've not just got targeting UFO alien v alien. You've also got the biblical spiritual going on of demonic versus angel. I mean, the demonic force is very real. You've got the biblical stuff running in tandem with it all, and humanity is actually caught in the middle. And the superpowers like Russia, even China, America, Britain for that matter, they have paranormal warfare units. They have in their intelligence services psychic warfare units. Yeah. And this is moving. That's why a lot of people think, well, COVID is engineered. COVID doesn't exist. That's the biggest joke of all, that it doesn't exist. It really, really doesn't work like that in real life. It just doesn't. But there you go. That's just my take on it.
Tony, when you, I would agree with you with the kind of like the positive and the negative in terms of everything, really, in terms of the angels and the demons and the ETs and the humans, and you could even say the spirit world as well. I'm really interested in this kind of like this correlation between the angels and the demons and the ETs, the positive and the negative ETs. Do you think they're actually on the same level, the same dimension, or are these two completely different wars but in the same space?
Well, what you've actually got, Andrew, is that you've got the, is it Andy or Andrew? What do you like to be called?
Whatever, Andy's
whatever,
good.
Andy. Yeah. Well, what you've got, Andy, at the moment, for example, is for example, in terms of the demonic force, it's so insipid and creepy and incestuous that you wouldn't quite know you were being manipulated by it. It's manipulation at every level, from the symbolism in our pop culture to the innocent looking symbolism that we might see on the internet. That's because it's a second front. And so at the moment, there's security concerns around that. But basically, that humanity is kind of like manipulated from another dimension. And within that dimension, there is actually conflict going on that you can't even put into words. It can get it's brutal. You see everybody's saying, well, bring in the light and we're all new age and we're all happy and that, but it's brutal, mate. It's absolutely brutal. And the thing is that at the moment we're seeing COVID rising, but it's kind of like, it's control of human consciousness actually that is the goal and has been for quite a while, I would suggest. So, you know, it's very real stuff, very real. Oh God, it is.
Where do you think the COVID comes from? Do you reckon it's the Chinese special like secret services? Do you think it's dark Americans or the global elitists?
Sorry, Andy, to jump in there, but I just kind of wanted to go around because I'm not getting to hear from Ben and Juliette. About you know they're taking their.
Sorry, we're getting carried away. Come on.
So we will get to that, Andy. We will get to that, but just let's back up. Let us back up for a minute.
You tell us.
So yeah, there's Sooty.
I'll shut up now.
No, you're fine, darling. Both you and Andy
right.
are fine. It's just that I do want to go there, and thanks for asking the question, Andy. It's just that I want to also hear from Ben and Juliette.
I can say a few words about what Tony and Andy have just been talking about, because the conquest of humanity on a spiritual level is very important. It is a spiritual level. This is being dealt with at the highest level. I mean, there's people who work in the political sphere and or the economic sphere, and they deny that, but they're wrong. It is you see this with various kinds of occult symbolism that the Illuminati, deep state, whatever you want to call them, love to use. And the COVID-19 pandemic is a part of that. It is actually connected to that because the pandemic has a terrible effect on human morale. It's designed to frighten us, to make us more isolated, more lonely, and uncertain of the future. It's a disease which actually it's not a terribly serious illness in itself. It's actually only slightly, from what I've seen, only slightly more serious than influenza. However,
Good God, man. I mean, I've had somebody die from COVID. It's
me too. Yeah.
Bloody hell. To say it's not serious, mate. Bloody hell.
Well, it's
what do you mean?
All right. Well, it has killed people. I mean, it killed 2 porters, but so does flu. The dangerous part of it is, I think, the government response and the people's response to that response. I think that's far more hazardous right now. I always knew that at some point they would do something like this. We've seen them try these things before with 9/11, with various other acts of horrific fear and brutality to try and basically corral people into a mental prison so then they can be marched into a real one. I always assumed it was only a matter of time before they tried something else. I predicted it will be a global war. It will be another massive false flag terrorist attack. It might even be a fake alien invasion. I predicted that. What they've chosen is something far less dramatic and intrusive. They've chosen a virus, and the government responds to that virus. It's one of these things that this may be kind of the end game. I don't know. I've heard the word end game before. I mean, Alex Jones made a video called End Game about 10 years ago, and so I don't know exactly what stage we're in, but it is this sort of perennial struggle between the forces of good and evil we're involved in.
Well,
and
this is the last battle.
Yeah, I mean, we're on the side of good. Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, there was a couple of things I wanted to add to what Tony was saying and to what you're saying as well, and Andy. But before I go into that, Juliette, do you want to go next?
Yeah, you're okay. I'm just listening.
Sorry, Ben, for interrupting.
No, you're right. I was going to do interesting. I think books are fantastic. So to go back, I've never seen a UFO, but I have seen ghosts and other weird things. However, I like my alternative books, so I just thought I'd do this. Wonder how much this is worth. First edition, by the way.
First edition, is it? Wow.
I've got I think books are interesting for lots of reasons, but then again, you could debate the point. It's from the viewpoint of the person who's written it. Going back to what you said, Tony, basically, you know, somebody could pick this up without any knowledge of ufology or anything else, read it and go, good God, that's a fantastic story. But of course, there's more to it than that. You could say the same about this. You could have discussions as long as you're on about the Illuminati, etc., and New World Order. Or you could say, this guy was a genius. Perception. It's all about perception at the end of the day. A lot of ours interconnect and they cross over. Excuse me while I put the books down. But if we're all the same, we wouldn't have things like this. We would not have the discussions. This is why things like this are a good thing. Even if you've only got half a dozen people watching, you learn, you evolve. I mean, I was going to ask you, Tony, how the heck do you cope with, you know, just same with Ben, same with Carol, same with Andy. How do you cope with people just going, it's horrific. That's my say. I'd like to see UFO. It'll probably happen when I least expect it. And I think I had this conversation with you at the Pro Bowl Lapis, actually, when I saw you a year or two ago. So,
maybe it's something that comes to people at certain points. I mean, Gareth from Mindset, we were on the Mindset podcast yesterday, and he was saying that sometimes these things can appear to certain people and not others at certain times. But I mean, it's interesting those books you got there about. I mean,
that's just
quite, getting in there deep, isn't it? Yeah. But
I've got. It's not just, like I said. I could bring out the other Alistair ones. I could bring out the Masonic ones. I could bring out the. Why have you got that? I could bring out your three. For this, I'm kidding. It's, to me, I don't buy because it's popular. I buy it A, to support the author, B, probably because I like them, C, because I want to learn something. But there's so many books out there, there's so many things, you can't buy everything. I think you've got to be a little bit select, otherwise it just, your brain will just go pop.
I could tell you a bit about an experience I had, actually. Well, it's, you see, I say experience, but I don't have any memories like Tony does of experiences of contact or anything like this. But I was at one of the Basis Project conferences once, which are well worth attending, actually. And they had some people there were scanning for people for implants. You may have seen Patient 37, that documentary about it. I think, is it Patient 37? Patient 19, I think it is. It's a number anyway, about Roger Lear and Daryl Sims, etc. But some people have artificial objects implanted in their body, and it doesn't seem to be surgically. It's hard to know how they actually get in there. But see, I've got no memory of any experience that would lead me to believe anything like that had been done to me. No memory at all. So I didn't bother going to this scan. And when I said so, one of the other delegates suddenly looked at me very hard and said, "Don't say that, Ben, don't say that." So in the end, I actually did get, I did actually get a scan. I got a scan,
was it fear that they? Was it through fear that they were saying, "Don't say that, Ben, don't say that"?
Yeah, they're saying that I said, well, then there's no point me getting scanned like this because I don't have an implant in me. I said, because I've never been abducted. I'm not an experiencer. And they said, "Don't say that, Ben." And I actually went to the scan in the end, and they did detect an 8 megahertz pulse coming out of my upper arm, and there was actually an electromagnetic field there too. Negative on the metal detection, but it indicated there's something in my upper left arm. Now, funny enough, about a year earlier, I noticed there was a mark on my arm, which is still there, I believe, and you may not see it on the webcam, but there was a mark on my arm. It looks a little bit like a face. Is it still there? Yeah, it's still there. You can't see it very well in the light. There's actually a distinct mark. It looks a bit like a face with large eyes.
That's very common.
And I noticed
markings are common.
And I sort of noticed that, and I thought, how did I get there? And this is long before that, and so I've got no missing time or anything like that. I just wonder if there's parts of my life I don't remember. Just I'm not in a rush to find out.
Would you, forgive me for interrupting, what about hypnotic regression? Have you ever had that done, and would you be up for it?
No, and right now, no.
Why?
I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm chickening out, but maybe it's something I ought to do. I know, but it's just.
I think it's a case of like once you open that can of worms, that might open up more cans of worms.
True.
It's something I'm just wondering what I am frightened. I mean, you'd have to be crazy not to be frightened of things like this, but it's something I should do at some point. I've got lots of other things getting in the way. I mean, but I will at some point.
Sure, I know somebody who can do it for you.
Thanks. Maybe I will. Maybe I will sometime. But that's just it's a weird thing, you know.
I know.
So one of the things I wanted to share was that when I first started channeling the Pleiadians, and this goes with what Tony was saying just now, is that one of the most profound things they told me is that we're in what they call it a war of the worlds, and it's a war on humanity. It's a war on consciousness. It's been going on since the time of the downfall of Atlantis, where negative energy came in and overtook Atlantis. And we've been slaves to negative ET energy ever since. And this is the last battle. This is the last battle. There's been many battles, and this is the last one. This time on Earth is pivotal. It's crucial. It's everything. It's really everything. And there is a war above the Earth, and that's been going on for a very long time between negative and positive ETs. And it's interesting that you were saying that, Andy, just now about angels and demons, because that kind of, it's hard to know if it's an angel or a positive ET or a demon or a negative ET. It's hard to know sometimes, because especially in art, there's been a lot of art in throughout our history where positive ETs have been represented and painted as angels. So it's hard to know, and I think there's stories in the Bible as well. I mean, I've never read the Bible the whole way through, but I think some of the stories in the Bible are they angels or ETs? Are they demons or ETs? So Tony, I don't know if you want to add or say anything to that.
Well, yes.
Or anyone.
Yeah, well, I mean, humanity is ruled by a very dark force. I mean, it is a very dark force. And it's a brutality and a battlefield that people don't quite understand. I wouldn't say don't quite understand. I would say they're in a trance really with it. And I know for a fact that also the other issue is kind of like, it's kind of like, you see, you could divide the security threat that this poses. In the media at the moment, you've got on CNN, for example, UFOs are a threat. The threat. They are a threat. What governments aren't getting at some level is the fact that when is a threat a warning, because it's quite clear that we are being warned, very clearly warned by them at some level. And so what you've got is this very clear division of the demonic and the angels and the extraterrestrials, and it's troubling as to what the ETs are doing behind the scenes with classified projects and the high level of corruption, as I say, that is going on there. Because not all ETs are fluffiness and light. Not all of these ET civilizations are like that. In fact, one in particular mirrors humanity very closely, the Nordics. They mirror humanity very closely indeed in what they do, although they do things differently, but they mirror very closely. And the trouble is this, if you're a contact experiencer, aliens can be as devious as any government agency in keeping quiet about things. And then they can manipulate people and manipulate minds so that you are up against a brick wall effectively. And that's the thing with it. So it's something that we've got to be aware of. In other words, you've got to have eyes in your ass. You really have with them. You absolutely have. You really have. And it leads to a mistrust of people as well. You don't know who's coming at you. And the other problem as well is cranks who think that they work for the government. Is another problem. Cranks who think that they're government spies. That's another problem. You know, it's unbelievable, frankly. In fact, it greatly angers me, and I'm very restrained in what I'm saying.
I think that it's really been, you know, people who channel, people who have UFO experiences and contactees and abductees. The whole thing has really been infiltrated, and we no longer know who's good and who isn't, who's a black hat and who's a white hat, but also you've got the whole MILAPs and Black Ops and all of that stuff going on as well. And some of it is really dark stuff. And I know you've had some really dark experiences, but do you have anything positive that you want to share with the audience?
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, of course. You see, the thing is as well is the bottom line is there is a baseline, what I call the baseline of divinity, the baseline of divine knowledge, and it is there. And for example, it's part of my life. I've had 40 years of it. On the one hand, people love me. On the one hand, people foam at the mouth at me. I don't give an effing toss, frankly, because you've got to stand with what you believe in. And the thing is that I've not got the intellectual capacity to make it up. So I'll give you an example, if you'll indulge me.
Same here, Tony.
Yeah, I've just not got time. So there's an example a few weeks ago. I looked after my mother for a number of years. She had dementia. I had to look after her with an unpleasant medical condition. I lost her. And I was going through a phase recently, a few weeks ago, of waking up on a morning and wanting to make her breakfast. And I'd wake up in this state of delirium, wondering where she was and blah and blah. And there was a situation occurred that I cannot articulate into words, but let's just say it's argy-bargy among those from the skies above. And I'll just say that I woke and in a semi-conscious state, present in this room was this feeling of absolute divinity, love and peace that I had never experienced before. And there are certain ET groups and certain people that seek that. They want it. It's like the Lord of the Rings and the Ring Bearer. They seek it, they want it, they can't get at it, they're trying to find it. And that was a recent experience. The other element of it, I still can't write into words what happened. It was quite frightening. And I just can't see, I'm so shocked after 45 years of dealing with this that I can't quite put it into words, but I'll find a way. So that's it. Yeah. It's the conflict of light and dark, definitely. Yeah.
So, I mean, I everyone words things very differently, using their own vocabulary and their own understanding. But going back to what I was saying about the War of the Worlds and all systems on Earth, the schools, the governments, the banks, the big pharma, the supermarkets, all are ruled by and owned and governed by negative ET energy at the height of them. And all systems, we're in a time now where all systems need to and are being crumbling and dissolving and disintegrating before our very eyes. I never thought I'd see a time on Earth like we're going through at the moment. And I just see COVID as being a part of the play. I'm not saying it's not real, because the Pleiadians have told me that it was a biological weapon that was created in Wuhan. I do think the figures, the numbers of COVID is, I don't believe the numbers. So there's a lot there, because I tend to just that's kind of a loaded question. There's loads of questions there. I'm just going to throw it open, and anyone wants to add anything to that, and then maybe we can move on to COVID and lockdown and masks and current events.
The origins of the COVID-19 are definitely from Wuhan. I mean, it's not even in dispute that it's from Wuhan. The original, the entire global pandemic came from that one spot, this one city in China. And originally it was blamed on this market where they sell all kinds of weird food that you don't get them in Chinese restaurants anywhere outside China. But to me, that seems an odd thing to blame it on when you consider there's a biological warfare laboratory in the same city. It's
actually.
Yeah, it seems a rather strange that the people are not pointing their fingers there. And of course, I personally believe it wasn't released deliberately. I think there was a plan to release it deliberately, but an accidental leak made them an accidental release of the virus made them move their plans forward a little bit. Because the reason I think that is because it all came from the same spot. Now, if you want to start a pandemic deliberately, you don't start it in one spot. You start it in different places around the world. So there's no trail leading back to you where it comes from. Excuse me. But the actual pandemic that's been planned there is actually the year before, in 2019. There were various drills of several kinds, and I can't remember all the details off the top of my head, but it's pretty clear that they were preparing for something that hadn't yet happened. It's almost, you see the same thing with 9/11 and other of these strange events. How do they know? How do they know in advance? The only way they could know in advance if it was something they were preparing for, which they knew was coming. So the accidental release of the virus, I think, didn't precede the actual release by very long. It probably would have happened within a few months anyway.
I've seen that it was patented.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, as well as there's the bit to do with the FBI questioning an American professor and his involvement with it all, and the fact that they'd used it to, is it now, what do they call it now? Gain. The term's gain something, isn't it? Where they'd added to it to make it more virile, not less, make it more potent, hadn't they? What's it called now? Because a special biological warfare term for it, isn't there? But these things are not just random. These things are carefully engineered, I do believe, and I will stand by my conviction that it's also an economic attack against nations as well. It's an economic attack of some description, like an act of terror. It's just finding the cause behind it. We can see the net moving, but we can't see the ball that's actually caused it. But I think it is some sort of attack on nations. I most definitely do.
I think maybe the primary goal was, in fact, a global economic crash, because if it was to kill people, it would be a lot more dangerous. I mean, in terms of kind of how dangerous it is, okay, some people die from it, but if you take how many cases there are, infected cases, versus how many people actually die, you've got something like a 96% chance of surviving it. So to me, that kind of shows that it's really more about attacking economies and bringing down countries rather than actually killing people.
Sorry, let me unmute there. I've never thought it was about culling us, because they can use a million other things to do that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Julia, I kind of butted in there.
No, you're fine. No, it's all right. I'm just listening.
There's absolutely, if you look at the effects of this pandemic, the government essentially can take and control everything. They've imposed regulations. Oh God, I've already had it. I hope I can't get it again.
Apparently you can. Apparently you can get it.
Yeah,
again.
it's the immunity wears off quickly, which is another sign that maybe it's not a natural virus.
Yeah.
It's which either that or there's more strains of it. There's different strains of it, which is another interesting part of it, which means it's going to be around a long time. The government have used this to control everything, to impose curfews on people, to impose regulations on businesses, which have destroyed some of them.
Yeah, because here's the thing. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting and keep butting in, but here's the thing, Ben, and and you guys as well. Apparently COVID knows when it's 10 o'clock. You know, I mean, to me, that is just so fucking ridiculous. You know, I don't understand how people don't see that it's BS. I don't understand it. Because
most people are programmed sheep, basically. They're told to do something and told that the situation is a certain way, and they just believe it.
It's very frustrating.
I loved it in Blackpool. It's like everybody else was in lockdown and we were like, hello, we're open. And then you've got half of the population going, come, keep the economy going, because of course it's a seaside down. It does rely on, you know, the transient people coming in and out. The population kind of goes up and down. But you've got the other half that are going, go away. I mean, they're actually switching the illuminations off on Wednesday.
Oh my God.
I know.
Has that ever happened before?
It hasn't. It's, you see, Blackpool is a utilitarian. There's a fancy word which I can't remember at the moment. So it kind of stands alone from every. They're damned if they do. They're damned if they don't. Because this is what I mean. You've got to think. You could say it about Brighton. You could say it about anywhere else that relies on tourists. York, Oxford, wherever. It's just unfortunate, and it is. there's a lot of like office workers having to go in, and there's I've been incredibly lucky, touch wood, yes I'm superstitious, I've been allowed to work from home. Not everybody has a job still, you know, so it's just horrible when you see the food banks and it's like,
I know.
You got half of the people sort of going, you know, and being horrible and nasty, and you've got other people just going, what can I do? Even just, you're right. You see that a lot on Twitter. You know,
there seems to be such a divide, Juliette.
It's like,
yeah,
half and half. There are people I've never met and I probably never will meet on Twitter, but sometimes it's like, I'll just, you're right. Yeah, I'm fine. How are you? You having a good day? You having a good week? And sometimes just that little mental health, you know, doing something like this. I mean, I've met Tony, I've met Ben, I haven't met you, you know, at some point we will, and that'll be lovely, you know, sort of doing this. You know, that probably looks dodgy as anything now. Yes, let's just use Sutty instead. Yes, I am making light of the situation, but again, there's further connotations you've got to think at the end of the day. It's this you could talk about for another couple of hours, and
I know,
we need to go to the loo and everything, and you know.
Just imagine if someone had been in a coma for the last 12 months and they woke up and they said, look, this, they walk out, they see people walking around with face masks on the street in this country. You know, I know these things have been used in Japan and China for a while, but and they see like, I see shops, you know, people queuing outside shops because there are now so many people in, and I think, how on earth did this happen? How is it that huge fines, you know, you can be arrested, you can be fined a very, very high amount for breaching these regulations.
Okay, do you know anybody who's been fined?
I don't know, actually. I haven't come to.
There was a party in Liverpool of students that got fined £10,000 apparently.
Each, or just collectively?
Each, yeah.
Each. Yeah, I think they target the vulnerable people.
But grouse hunting's fine. You can go grouse hunting with your posh friends, and that's not a problem.
Yeah, I saw some of that on Facebook, Andy.
Mad, isn't it?
If your name's Dominic Cummings, that's absolutely fine. You can do what the hell you like.
I think Boris needs to sack every single one of his so-called advisors. They're all compromised by Big Pharma, all of them.
The problem is that they, unfortunately, are in control right now. See, Boris Johnson's changed so much, hasn't he? I mean, he's totally changed. Yeah. And the only way that could be, either he was like playing some huge confidence trick, which I don't think is true for various reasons, or maybe they've got his wife and kid in custody. I don't know. He's got a new baby. Maybe they've.
I think there's another aspect to this. Think about
before we move on. Can I just add that when Boris came out of hospital, to me he looks so different. I've since got rid of my TV, but I wanted to chuck it down the stairs, but I didn't. I took it down in the lift. But he looks so different to me. He didn't look like the same person. And he was just having a son at the time, and I thought, I wonder if they've got to him and they've targeted his wife and son, or his daughter, whatever it was, his family, and are using that as a blackmail against him, because he just looked so different when he came out. Anyway, back up to you, Andrew. Sorry for butting in there.
Yeah, I'd say probably he looks different because he's been through hell and back with the, you know.
He didn't look the same though. He looked so different. It was like a different person. So I don't know if he was cloned or I don't know, but he didn't. I mean, even his energy, it was completely different.
It's interesting to note that that I've studied. You won't see it in the West, but the Russian Paranormal Warfare Unit, which is known as Troop 10,003. They have done quite a lot of security analysis at a psychic level. They don't mess around. And they had a situation ongoing where they had an actual psychic unit called the Department of Mental Security, which psychically protected Boris Yeltsin. So the question one must ask is, because there was a report done by the US Air Force many years ago called The Mind Has No Firewall, the question then has to be asked is, when leaders like Boris Johnson, the president, are asleep, what exactly are they exposed to, and how does that affect their decision making in view of the paranormal background that ordinary folk like us have actually witnessed? And this has a bearing probably on the situation that we see before us.
what I was going to say in terms of Boris and his position, going back to you, Ben, is that if you think about it, Boris has no medical qualifications. Neither does Matt Hancock, but Boris is the Prime Minister. He is reliant on scientific advisors. And if you think about being in his position, he's going to have his health experts, they're not, but they claim they're experts, and scientific advisors coming up to him and saying, look, Prime Minister, if you don't do this, then this many people will die. The hospitals will be overwhelmed. These are the steps we advise you to do it. And if you don't do these steps, then you will be held responsible and you will be liable for all of these deaths. So I think what Boris is doing, he's taking the easy option, which is basically, well, I've got to trust the experts. I've got to trust the experts, because if I don't, then I'm going to get absolute heat for this. So he's in a bit of a sticky situation, but the reality is a lot of these people have got Illuminati ties. Whenever Matt Hancock and Chris Whitty come on the podium, I just get this real snake, like slithery snake feeling about those two. Boris, I think, is actually on the light side. You may not think it, but I think he's on the light side, or at least started out on the light side. I don't think he's dark, but the others around him, he's surrounded by vipers, basically, is what I think is going on.
Yep, that's exactly what I suspect is happening. I think this is why I actually made a video appealing to people not to give up on him, because if he's motivated to be part of the good side of things, he might find some way to break out from whatever leverage that they have on him right now. Whether it's, he might find a way to secure the safety of his fiancée, and I think it's his son, or some whatever else they've got on him right now. He may find some way to escape from that and fight back. I mean, President Trump has certainly done that. I think the fact that he's alive, I think, is testimony to the fact that he does have some kind of clout within the government. And whether he will continue or not, we'll find out probably in the next couple of months. But he has lasted for 4 years in a situation where John F. Kennedy, for example, was he's disposed of very easily when he became a liability.
As we know, it's the presidential elections tomorrow, Ben, and I don't know who you support. I think it's very important that as radio hosts, we should be very impartial and very neutral in this. So, whoever kind of wins the day, good luck to him, really. But I think we should be very neutral in how we present this.
I think so too, Ben. And can you please send me a hat?
I've got one actually hanging up
Andy,
there.
sorry.
You're as neutral as a CNN host.
I think we need
on the other way around.
We got to do it.
I've got a feeling that what's actually coming is not an election, but a non-election. Because
have you seen some of Joe Biden's rallies? Where
the ones he got in school playgrounds with the people in the car park sounding their horns? He's
got a warehouse, an empty warehouse, and there's like 6 journalists and a camera. It's hilarious.
Yeah, his campaigns, which have been far less numerous than Trump's been doing like 5 a day for the last few weeks, but he's done like them in very, very small locations where there's a few people. You get a few people outside sounding their car horns, and that's all there is. And I mean, the enthusiasm gap is palpably different. I mean, the opinion polls can't be real.
Take the 2016 election. Who was saying?
I'm sorry. Tony is saying. I'm sorry to butt in again. But Tony's saying he's got to leave. So, Tony, please, any last positive words for people, for the audience, and how can people find you?
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Look, I do apologise to the group. I do have to leave. I've just got an issue with my sister who has certain autism, and I just need to just attend to something. I do apologise. But you can find me on TonyToppingUFOs.com, and the book's hopefully coming out in December called I, Alien, The Secret UFO Chronicles as well. And it will be an amazing read. I'll certainly sort out a complimentary copy for you all.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
I think we'll all get together again, maybe in December. Just
recap, yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd be a stunning, smashing. Sorry, I sound like I'm auditioning.
Yeah.
It'd be a good idea if we could do that. I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, good, excellent. Yeah, I think that will be really good. We've got to keep an eye on this situation, but there is divine intervention going on, and I think the darkness gets all of the good PR. Nobody ever hears of the work of the light, because the light moves by stealth. You don't see the movement of the light, but you hear all the darkness. But it's there. Divine intervention is a reality, and I think things will get better. I do. I really do.
I hope you're right, Tony.
I hope so and all. All right. Thank you very much, guys.
Take care.
Thank you, Tony.
Bye-bye, love. Bye-bye.
Thank you, darling. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. So Andy and Ben, what were you saying?
I can't remember.
We were talking about
Hats.
there's been
Hats.
a huge. Yeah, there was a huge.
Hats.
Oh, it's the hat. Yeah, I've got a hat like Andy's, because yeah, I'm not American,
say,
obviously.
Ben.
I don't have a say, but I do hope President Trump,
Oh,
will I say
leader.
win, but I mean, this,
Policy.
yeah. Well, what's coming up, I think, is going to be. There's so much fraud involved. I mean, some of it's been exposed. The vote being rigged because of the postal ballots and things like that.
Oh, they found dumpster trucks
Yeah.
where they just dumped ballots.
And they're all coincidentally from Democrat areas. I mean,
Yeah,
from
and
Republican areas where they
Yeah.
know those people will be voting Republican.
Yeah, and the ballots all say Trump on them, tick on the Trump box. You know.
The United States of America is in terms of its politics, it's been dominated by two parties for the last few decades, the GOP, Grand Old Party, and the Democratic Party. And it's notoriously 50-50 on both of them. And it's almost like the Americans are deliberately sort of like balancing themselves on a tightrope. But they've now come off that tightrope.
We're talking about the opinion polls, weren't we?
Yeah, the opinion polls now are quite remarkable because they've now been, according to the opinion polls that have been published, the official ones, they've been knocked off that tightrope. There's one man who's come along, a powerful, eloquent, moral leader who has captivated the heart of the nation and has encouraged the Americans has driven them to actually choose one candidate over the other by a very, very decisive margin. And it's Sleepy Joe. And I find that hard to believe. I find it hard to believe those opinion polls.
But they said the same thing about Hillary. They said that Hillary was clearly in the lead, that she'll definitely win. They said the same about...
Not to this extent, though. Not to this extent. I mean, it's like they maybe... See, what happened in 2016 is there was definitely an attempt to rig that election. And a rigged election is essentially null and void. But it didn't work because they did...
I think everything is rigged. I think they rigged the Scottish vote a few years ago. I think
But it did.
Yeah, they rigged that. There's no way. I mean, the Scottish hate the English, and rightly so. And there's no way that there's no way, I feel, there's no way the Scottish would have voted the way they did. No way. It was rigged.
Well, there's actually positive evidence to indicate that, Carol, because people were filming inside the town halls where they were counting the vote, and they could see that boxes saying yes have been placed onto the no table. If what we vote on something and it's some kind of fraud, some kind of chicanery to stop it going a certain way, then we enter a very, very dark place.
There's one thing, really important thing that I want to share with you guys, and it is that, and then Juliette, can get your thoughts as well. But so I'm a psychic medium. I'm not a researcher. I'm a psychic medium, and I take my hat off to people that are researchers because they spend so long. I mean, it's huge time consuming. It's time consuming to be a researcher. I'm not a researcher at all, and I don't know if I ever will be, but I'm a channel for the Pleiadians. So that's where I get my info. That's where I get my knowledge. That's where I get my education, even because I never had any secondary schooling. So one of the dreams I had over the last couple of months, since February, I had 2 or 3, maybe 4 of them about Trump. And I never really believe anything at all, unless I experience it myself. So I had these dreams about Trump, where he is a light worker and he's a light hat and he's a warrior and he's working for the light. There's much more to Trump than we would have seen last year. A few years ago, I actually thought Trump was just an idiot, and I no longer believe that at all because of these dreams I had, where there was light coming from his hands, his fingers. I was taken into an underground bunker, and he was showing me some papers, some things, some papers, some legal documents, and he was just surrounded by light. So, and this is a real dream, and I've been having these since I was a child. And the next thing I knew, I was in an underground bunker with Putin, and he was showing me something similar. He was showing me paperwork or something, And I felt very strongly in the dream that these two people were working together, and that they were friends and working together, and that they were in cahoots with each other, and very aware of working very closely together, very aware of what the other's doing. So yeah, I just wanted to share that because I think it's important. And I really do support Trump. I've never voted. I couldn't give a shit about politics, or because basically, you know, at the end of the day, they were all the same, whoever you're voting for, whether it's the left or right. But with Trump, he's not a politician. He's a light worker. He's a warrior, and he's here to be a game changer. And I feel that that's what he's doing. So I'm going to put myself on mute and let you guys talk.
Well, you got to look at who the media hates in terms of like who is against the Illuminati. So they hate Trump and they hate Putin, and they actually hate Boris as well. So whoever the media hate, and the media are controlled by the Illuminati, those are usually going to be the good guys, is my opinion there.
There was a question in the comments by a Simon. Hello, Simon. Right, and I held this book up, and he wants to know who it's by. So it's by Arthur Edward Waite, with an introduction by Emmett McLaughlin. 2 volumes in one. I mean, look at it, really as big as my head. So there you go, if you want to take a screenshot. I will come back to the Illuminati with you in a moment. Interesting with everybody talking about the Cold War. And I thought, oh, right. Have you guys heard of this chap?
Michael Bentine? No.
Bentine.
Yes, I have.
Goons?
Yep, he's an interesting chap. He was a comedian, wasn't he? And
Medium potty time?
He
was a medium.
Yeah.
Worth reading, because he does talk about this, and this is going back World War One, World War Two. Seriously, guys, if you can get these, they're out of print, but you can get them on eBay, Amazon, places like that. Please do get them. Right, back to the Illuminati. Why do we think the Illuminati exists? Just putting it out there. I will answer questions coming back, but there is a reason I'm asking this.
Why do we think the Illuminati exists? Well, I suppose you'd have to look at the definition of what they are. My definition of the Illuminati, because some people would think that they started with Adam Weishaupt in whenever it was 1766, like as an official group. I would probably call them like an umbrella term for those in elite positions that are game changers within a global setting. That are totally out of touch with the rank and file of everyone else, call the shots, run everything, own everything, and are kind of like the heads or involved with many different organizations, whether it's Bilderberg Group, Council of Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, blah, 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 blah. All of those I would kind of like have an umbrella term as Illuminati, in the same way that Christianity encompasses Church of England, Catholicism, Baptists, Methodists, etc. So all of those fall under the umbrella of Christianity, whereas the Illuminati groups kind of like fall under the umbrella of Illuminati. Ben, what would you say?
That's a pretty good definition, Andrew. I mean, the word, the Bavarian Illuminati, of course, refers to an organization that may or may not be involved in anything. It's, as far as we know, it actually only lasted a few years. It was founded interesting enough, on the 1st of May, 1776. Beltane. It's the same year the United States Declaration of Independence happened. But it just seems to be attached to Freemasonry and things like this. But basically, there is, if you believe, as I do, there is such a thing as basically a drive in politics around the world. The trend in politics we've seen almost throughout history, I think. I don't know, there's been reversals and there's been hiccups and there's been levelings off, but generally the drive is towards greater authoritarianism and internationalism using various forms. And the way it happens is very, very clear that it's deliberate. It's a deliberate plan concocted by somebody. There's no way, for various reasons, it's a long story, but that these sort of things could happen naturally. Just, it could emerge out of human interaction naturally. The Illuminati is the name given by people like myself to describe it basically is a hypothetical thing. It's the hypothetical perpetrators of that particular conspiracy. Now, funnily enough, other people have come to the same conclusion, independent of those who came to the conclusion and called it the Illuminati. These are people who use terms like the deep state.
Mm.
The people who say deep state basically came to the idea completely independently of those who came to the idea or discovered this agenda as who called it the Illuminati, which means from a completely independent point of view, we essentially discovered the same thing.
Right.
Who they are,
Let
I
me
don't-
play, forgive me, let me play devil's advocate with you both. All right. So let's say you've got the lower levels of Masonic brethren. Would you say that they may or may not be aware if this is going on in the high echelons of power? What about the women who are Masons?
I don't know. I mean, see, the Freemasons, of course, it's a complicated subject. I haven't studied it in the depth that you have. I've read a couple of books about it, like Born in Blood, and what's the other one? But there's something that not Murdered by the Craft.
Hold on, let's see what we've got.
Born in Blood is a very good
Let me
book.
look in the library.
But it's a secret. It's a society, obviously, that serves many forms. And Born in Blood is a good history of Freemasonry. It goes back to the cathedral.
No, it's not.
It's not.
Sorry, I disagree with that. But
okay,
anyway.
you got a different. Okay, it's a book
I
I
have
read.
access
That's
to
all.
the library.
Yeah. Okay, but I mean, I've known people of Freemasons. There's been porters. There was a porter at my hospital who was an active Freemason who paid his dues and stuff like that. And no, he was an X-ray porter at my hospital. He wasn't involved in any plan to take over the world. So it could be that Freemasons is a red herring. It could be a red herring.
It's like all the charity work they do, which they do.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, is it a front? Is it not a front? I'm just interested to hear it from.
Well, they paid.
You guys.
There's an ambulance in the Oxfordshire, well, it used to be, it's now South Central Ambulance Service. It was paid for by Lodge 333 of the Scottish Rite Lodge in Oxford. Kitting out a modern ambulance costs about £1.5 million.
Mm.
It's very expensive, and they donated that money. They raised and donated that money to buy that ambulance.
I think there's actually two aspects to this, personally. So let's say, first of all, let's talk about Freemasonry as a whole and the type of people that are involved in Freemasonry. My personal belief is that at the lower levels there are perfectly decent, good people kind of doing charity work, doing decent work, and to them it's a bit of a nudge, wink, wink, old boys club, let's get together, do a few deals, you scratch my back, I scratch yours type thing. Having spoken to some Freemasons myself, I am aware that the higher you go, they felt personally, I won't name them, the darker it gets. Okay, so at the bottom, it's about scratching backs and it's about, funny handshakes. The higher up you go, the darker it gets. Also, the higher up you go, they'll say that everything you've learned so far is wrong. This is how it really is. Then you get to the next level. Oh, everything you learned on that level is wrong. Here's how it really is on the next level, blah, blah, blah. So there's that. There's a constantly kind of like evolving, what you learn is different on each stage up. So there's that.
It's brilliant. I love the way it also discounts women, because there is women's Freemasonry has been there for the past 100 years.
Has it? Oh, I always thought it was like a men's club.
No. Keep talking.
I've been aware that there were female orders as well in Freemasonry. The Order of Women's Freemasons. Right. Yeah, I've been aware there have been female Freemasonry orders as well.
Yeah, there you go. Started.
I've been aware.
Because obviously, not within Britain, a lodge with male members, and that never the twain shall meet. Again, with some of the words used, it's like, the secret handshake. I was waiting for the trouser leg rolled up as well. So
That's your skirt, the skirt roll up. Did they make you do that? Do they make you roll your skirt up?
No, you should.
Sorry,
yeah.
You shouldn't be asking questions like that.
The other
going to anyway.
The other aspect I would actually bring into this is kind of like, maybe they possibly have like a karmic thing going on. So for instance, okay, let's take Jimmy Savile. Okay, the world's most prolific paedophile, complete monster, used to have sex with dead bodies in mental hospitals, things like that, and yet he raised millions for children's hospitals. Okay, so could there be in their minds, and I'm talking about their mind, not my mind, maybe they're aware of the rule of karma. Maybe they realize that if they're going to do a hell of a lot of dark stuff to balance the karma out so it doesn't rebound on them, they've got to balance that with good stuff. So there's a possibility that maybe within some of these Freemasonic circles, okay, we do all this dark stuff, we're going to take over the world and kill everybody. I don't believe every Freemason wants that, but maybe the top echelons think that way. I don't know, but maybe kind of like to balance that out. Okay, well, let's do some charity work to kind of like, so the universe doesn't bitch slap us, you know.
Andy, I don't know if you're familiar with Mark Passio, because he does a lot of very interesting discussions on this. The fact that they put a lot of symbolism into the world, which includes hints of what they're doing, what they plan to do, it's in a sense they're giving. It's almost like they have to tell us. They're part of their belief system. This is not Freemasons, by the way. I'm talking about something else. I'm talking about this hypothetical occult organizations behind the Illuminati. They have to tell us in advance what they're going to do. And they have to give us clues about when they do something. They have to give us clues by filling things up with all kinds of symbols. Like there's a whole list of them. Some of them might be truer than others, but they say things like 9/11 is like 911. It's the emergency service number in the United States. There's the twin pillars and things like that of the Solomon's Temple, which are the twin towers. You watch episodes of The Simpsons from years earlier, and you see things that seem to hint towards 9/11 and things like that. And in their belief system, it means that if they, in a sense, tell us what they're going to do and we don't respond, it becomes our fault. I don't agree with those ethics, but that's within their belief system. That's what they accept. They say there's no karma because it's their fault, because we told them what we're going to do. And by not responding, they gave their tacit permission for us to do this to them.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Juliette?
Sorry, I was it's an incredibly interesting subject, and I think obviously with you both discussing to some degree, it's one of those we could probably just sit down and just go into the 2 hours. There's much more to it. There's so much more to it. You've got more history on it. It's a fascinating subject. It really is. But it's like, I think something Tony said, I think maybe at the beginning, it's like a lot of people believe what they're told. I go out and research things. It's like you've seen, I know you can't see properly, but you can see some of the books I have. I've got loads of books, if I see it, I think, oh, that's interesting, pick it up. Some things I've read I don't necessarily agree with. And some of the viewpoints, again, I don't necessarily agree with. But everybody's entitled to their own opinion, as long as you don't go, start a slanging match or doing ridiculous things across social media. I think Ben and I, we've had this conversation, haven't we? Yeah. Just because we've got different viewpoints, I'm not going to argue and debate that. It's like, we'd be boring if we're all the same, wouldn't we?
Would, yeah. Yes, it would, very much so.
There's also something else worth considering. Could it be that the Freemasonic organization, whenever it started, actually did start out as a charity organization or something to help humanity, or at least protect certain spiritual secrets? Could it have been hijacked by another dark occultic group who decided to take it over and manipulate it in their own way?
No, cool.
You've got to go back to the Egyptians, because when you think the handshake has been by various authors, the handshake was a way of going, right, I'm a stonemason from wherever, Alexandria, etc. It was a way of greeting, like we shake a hand. Or am I making sense of what I'm saying? It was like you could go back, it was actually a craft, because it's called the craft as well. There's so many different names. And then it's kind of morphed into something weird, and then perhaps like I said, camp worms.
I've heard modern Freemasonry has a little bit of a problem with the technology era, and I'll tell you why. So pre kind of internet and pre kind of technology and apps and all that, mobiles and that kind of thing, there wasn't, okay, there were things to do in life, but kind of people weren't focused on technology, and there was some spare time that people had, and some of the spare time was spent going to lodges and things like that, meeting people. And apparently some of the younger members kind of like they don't really like because some of the ceremonies, from what I understand, are fairly kind of slow, they're kind of long and methodical, from what I understand. And kind of like the modern generation, they're not into that anymore. It's just like, you know, why would I want to get dressed up in aprons and gloves and, you know, do all these ceremonies when I've got, you know, Call of Duty and stuff. You know?
If there's something interesting to look at, it's if you look at the cathedrals of Europe. Now, these are some of the most remarkable structures ever built. They're between I think between 800 and 1,000 years old now. Most of them are still standing after all that time, and they still dominate the skylines of our cities to this day. At the time they appeared, we were supposedly at a very, very low level of technology. This was like the Middle Ages, a low level of technology, a low level of knowledge. There was a lot of superstition, very little education in the general population. There's now a society like that, to produce something like that, it had to involve some kind of alternative knowledge. And I think Juliette may have other ideas here, but I'm not an expert on this. It's just what I've read in various books, that the Freemasonry tradition came out of that knowledge. Now, because the actual cathedrals, they're built on the basis of the golden mean. This is why they want to record. This is why they record music in cathedrals, because it sounds better, because it has the golden mean encoded into the architecture. You know about it's called the golden section, the magic section, the phi proportion. It's like it's the proportion of your two joints on your finger here compared to your whole finger. It's that ratio. Now you see that all over the universe in all kinds of different ways, from the construction of a seashell, the evolution of a seashell, to the spirals of galaxies in the universe. And it's always a big mystery, and it says something fundamental about the universe, that proportion appears all over the place. And it's encoded into these cathedrals, which is why they're so robust, why they've lasted so long, and why they're so aesthetically beautiful, including the sound, the sound that you make in them, the acoustics of them. So that's always fascinated me, and of course the Freemasonry appears to be a part of that. So
I think it's something that we three could probably just go, just discuss for hours. It's interesting. Where, you know, no disrespect to either of you, I probably know more on the history of it than you both do, but there is a good reason for that, which I will explain about later, because we've got 5 minutes left and I won't be able to explain this in the next 5 minutes, so
it
probably
sounds
time
like,
for us to
it sounds like you have a lot of knowledge about it, Juliette.
Yeah, you could say that. Sorry. Yeah. But like I said, as usual, you know, when something gets kind of tasty or interesting, we always run out of time. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I'm diabetic, so I'm going to have to go and have some food. But thank you so much for joining me today. And how can people find you guys? And please send me your links so I can put it onto the YouTube description.
Well, shall I go first?
Anything you want to promote, you know?
You can find out me at HPANWO, that's HPANWO, and that stands for Hospital Porters Against the New World Order. And if you put that into Google, you'll find my various websites and things like that. So just check those out.
Me, it's Tuned In Events, TUNID in events.co.uk. Website under construction at the moment, but it should be revamped fairly soon. Also on Facebook, and also catch myself, me, Neil Geddes Ward, and sometimes Ben Emlyn Jones as well, on the Paranormal Peep Show on the Paranormal UK Radio Network.
I just appear periodically with Sooty, and no, I'm kidding. I do have a warped sense of humour, do forgive me. Yeah, I'm just on social media. Juliette Gregson is not a particular, well, Juliette's not a particularly common name. Just come hunt me out if you're really interested, or, you know, you can always print a picture of me out and throw darts at it. Your choice. Hey, I've got nothing to plug really, because I don't really have a website. I'm just there in the background.
I've got a final thing to plug to any American audience. We do have the elections coming up. The choice really is communism, riots, destruction, burning and murder and looting, or it's Trump. So I'm not saying, you know, kind of like, yeah, I'm not saying kind of don't vote. I'm just saying kind of maybe vote for someone who's not a complete psychopath. This might be a clue.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Andy. Yeah, it's, I'm not even going to go into it because yeah.
Yeah, it's communism or freedom. That's the choice in America. Communism or freedom. Make a choice.
Yeah.
Well,
I do see a positive outcome, but
If Trump
yeah,
gets in,
we'll know soon enough, won't we?
we will.
We may take a while, actually. We probably won't know for at least a few weeks, but yeah, it's going to be quite. There could be quite a collision coming up tomorrow, so we'll see what happens. Almost anything could happen.
Yeah.
Well, thank you to everybody for tonight. Been absolute fun. Hope you guys have all enjoyed it as well.
Thank you, Juliette. Thank you, Carol, for hosting this. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you to everyone. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you guys soon. I do need to speak to you guys, so I'll talk to you soon on Facebook or wherever. And
yeah, definitely.
My love to everyone.
Okay. Stay safe.
Yeah, stay sane.
And